What's up, everybody? Welcome. My name is Amber Gonzalez, and if this is your first time, I am so glad you're here. And if this is not your first time, thank you for coming back. So I would really love to just sit here and share with you about all the progress we've made about buying a home ever since we moved here to South Dakota. But I can't, because there was none. Anyways, there's legit reasons, you guys. But anyways, there were some things that came up that made us stop, and we had to reflect and really talk some things out. One of the things we talked about were some major possibilities in the future of what that future could look like, or what is entailed into that future. And so looking at buying a house, we had to put that back on the table. Like, is this something we should continue to pursue? So we were talking back and forth, and everything was going fine. Everything was lining up. We were agreeing on everything until we were reminded that God promised us that we were going to buy a house. So that put us at another stop, and we spent time talking things out, hearing each other's side, and coming to agreements and trying to work out through the disagreements, until I was just like, you know what? We need some other perspective. So I have a friend. He's actually like a brother to me. I grew up, he's an older brother to me. One of my best friend's brothers. Him and his wife. So I called them up and I was just asking them, because they are basically in the same boat as we are. They want to buy a house, and they have those same concerns about the future that we do. So we're like-minded. The only difference between them and us is that they actually decided they're going to continue to go forward and buy a house. So I wanted to hear their perspective and see what they had to say. Like, what was the tipping factor for them? So I did. And then I related it to Joel and shared it with him. And him and I just so quickly were like, yeah, let's keep going forward. We need to stay on track and go for buying a house, right? So finally, yes, okay, after months of not moving forward, here we go. We're going to move forward, and we're going. Stop, quit, time out. No, we're not. No, we're not. And the reason we couldn't continue to move forward is because another discussion came up. And that discussion was, okay, where are we going to buy a house? Wait, what? I thought y'all moved to South Dakota and were determined to just buy a home there. Yeah. Interesting, huh? Interesting how life just brings things up again, right? Honestly, guys, I'm so tired of moving. The only time I want to move is when I am moving into a house that we are buying. That is the last time I want to move. So we actually looked at Texas because two reasons. Because we have some friends that were thinking about moving to Texas, and we have family out there. So we were like, well, maybe let's look at Texas. And the reason being is because we're alone out here, and we knew we would be moving out here. We have a church. We love our church. We serve at our church, but connections are not the easiest, unfortunately. So it's been kind of hard with that. So we thought, if we move to Texas, we'll be with our friends and we will be with family, right? So we spent more time back and forth with that. And then on a coffee date, Joel and I discussed it again. And I actually brought it up. He was just kind of staring into the abyss, and I brought it up. I was like, okay, so this whole idea of moving to Texas, he was like, no, here's what we're going to do. He said, we're staying in South Dakota. He said, this is where God opened the door. This is where doors of opportunity have opened for us. And this is where God moved us. He said, we have been so blessed here. Why would we leave? He said, we're not going anywhere until we find out what the spiritual purpose of us being here for is. So My kids are driving in the truck with their dad right now. They're just on property ground. I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know if you guys could see that, but yeah, they're super excited. I'm just here waiting for him. So they're taking a ride on his truck. Now I think they're stuck inside. They can't even get out. But so he decided that we are going to go ahead and just stay here in South Dakota. We're going to buy a house here, and that's what we're going to do. But with the concerns of the future, we still need to get a little bit more consistent in that. So
just go over there. Go over there. Pick me up over there.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
So we need to get a little bit more consistent with what we're preparing for in the future. We've been preparing and had to start all over when we moved out here, but it's just not as, it hasn't really been too much of a priority, which is no excuse. But yeah, so we'll get back on track with that, and we will continue to save for home. So that is where we are at. Yeah. So until next time, keep going after your dreams. Sometimes you have to stop, evaluate, and just consider some things and see if that's still the direction you guys want to head in. So, yeah. Okay, real quick, I want to talk to you guys about being indecisive. Indecision shows a lack of willingness to commit. Okay, take Lot's wife, for example. Genesis 19. She perished because she couldn't decide between Sodom or obedience to God. But then there's Elijah, who went before the people, and he's like, how long must you waver between two opinions? Like, this is not okay, people, right? However, Romans 14 addresses indecisiveness when it comes to personal convictions. Now we're getting into the conscience of the mind. That is something completely different. And scripture says, and I'm going to paraphrase, but basically one considers this, one considers that. Each have their own personal convictions, and they could be completely different from each other. But the point is that we must be fully convinced in our mind about those convictions. And God, when it comes to such matters as that, God has given us his word to instruct us. But he also leaves room for personal opinion in the convictions. But what the Bible does not condone is the wishy-washiness, the back and forth. James 1:6 says, the one who doubts is like the waves of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. So this is referring to someone who is unstable, someone who is not fully convinced, one who is hindered by unbelief. Okay, they are tossed to and fro, back and forth by the winds. Now, I live here in South Dakota, and I thought San Francisco's wind was bad. San Francisco has nothing on the wind out here. This is ridiculous. And it's not even the windiest city. It's not considered the windiest city of the United States. It is so, it is an irritant. I couldn't already stand the wind. I can't stand it even more now. Living out here in South Dakota, this wind is ridiculous. It becomes an irritant. It makes me irritable, right? And that, compare that to life situations when you are indecisive about things. That decision that you just absolutely must make becomes an irritant. You begin to become irritable, and you just, right? It's this thing that just drives you crazy. Not so with the mind of a healthy Christian. The mind of a healthy Christian is decisive about God's plan for their life. So indecisiveness about what God has declared to be true, there's no room for that in a Christian's life. So if you need wisdom, ask God for it, because he'll give it to you. Here's what I want you to do. Think about what it is you are being indecisive about. Does it include personal convictions? Because now we're dealing with the matters of the mind. Or is it just a matter of not being willing to commit? You are under one of the two categories when it comes to this. So think about which category you're under and make a decision once and for all. Be fully convinced in your mind, commit it to the Lord, and He will honor that. So as always, if you haven't done so, start today, because there is no time like the present time. Take care.